What is up, sexy people? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Estonian death metal band Intrepid. The band's new album, Juxtaposition, will be released on June 4th via Knife Fight Media. After honing their craft on local stages, Intrepid burst onto the international scene with their first European tour in 2023 alongside death metal veterans Monstrosity and Origin. In 2024, they returned to the road with Nile and Hideous Divinity, promoting their dual EP Slaying of Sanity, Murder of Mind. Now Intrepid enters a new chapter with the release of their upcoming full-length. The title says it all, Juxtaposition, captures Intrepid's ability to balance brutality with nuance, blending technical precision with raw instinct. The album was recorded at Matrix Studio by Elmu Vark, with additional guitars and vocals recorded by Simo Atso at Sound Fortress. The album was then mixed and mastered by Mark Lewis, who has worked with Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, Dying Fetus, The Black Dahlia Murder and Whitechapel in Nashville, Tennessee.
An eclectic guy that works with many different levels of heaviness then.
Multiple genres of music.
You got a heavy as fuck album, I'm your guy.
Death metal, technical death metal, blackened death metal, progressive death metal.
Bluegrass? What?
We're all jogging.
Yeah,
Mark
let's not fuck with
Lewis.
these guys. I'm always wary about how much the jokes land with death metal bands because some of them are really serious.
Yeah. This is a serious band, Duncan. I should know. I saw them live. They weren't the opening band. They were the second band on the Nile tour in Glasgow, who played with also Hideous Divinity. I had no idea who they were, but might be the first Estonian death metal band that I've come across.
Estonia, such a beautiful. No, it's Barcelona. Sorry,
I can't.
I can't. We have reviewed an Estonian band before.
Have we? I couldn't even.
There was that weird time period where we did or we reacted to an Estonian band or something.
Or maybe
something from out that way, but it wasn't these guys.
No. They've been active since about 2016. This is their second album. And I must admit, when I saw them in Glasgow, they really piqued my interest. Killer set, sounded really tight, and afterwards, I spoke to a few people I knew in the crowd, and like myself, they hadn't heard of the band either, but were very impressed with what they were doing.
You got the friends, eh?
Couple, you know. The day after the gig, I was really keen to check out their debut album, Unused Imaginative Capacity. And it's okay. It was.
And I found my album of the year. No, it's fine.
It was maybe a little bit underwhelming after seeing them live, and then listening to the album. It was like, oh, okay. And the album was quite rough around the edges.
When did it come out?
I think it was 5-6 years ago.
Right. So they've been away honing the craft, touring with large bands. So,
it was a while ago. Yeah. It was like 2019 or 2020. I think it came out. It was probably it's the band in their kind of early stages, their infancy really. Still kind of honing their craft and stuff. This album sounds, to be honest, like a completely different band. Like, if you listen to the two albums side by side, you'd be like, that's not the same band. Stylistically, it's still the same. But everything from the musicianship to the kind of song construction, most definitely the production has been upgraded here. If you're a fan of the classics, Duncan, if you like.
What? No,
not those classics.
All right, sorry. You can't just be throwing it I'm still about to hit it with AC/DC, Led Zeppelin. You can't just be throwing things at words like classics.
No.
Give me a box, Steve.
If you like the more malevolent tones of, say, Morbid Angel.
Oh, so we go 90s here. So what you're saying is classic 90s death metal.
Yeah. There's that kind of the dissonance and the fury. or like that kind of the pounded kind of bass drum accented riffs of like Cannibal Corpse,
Yep.
or like that slower kind of more churning sound of like Obituary, then this is a band that will slide into your ear holes without any need for lubrication. None.
Keep them away from. How do you do with your ear holes? They're important things. They're how we monetize this shit later on. So you'd be ruining things,
Maybe.
right?
Funnily enough, and I'll get on to this, but there's in the first track of this album, there's also a little hint of Niall in the lead work as well. Just I was like, oh, okay, right, okay, I see what you're doing there. When I saw them live, though, personally, I got a huge wave of Decapitated from this band. Some of the Intrepid riffs are very reminiscent of that kind of early. Like nihility kind of era Decapitated, where it's
Also, right part of the world as well.
It's close.
Decapited's Polish, aren't they?
yeah.
Right, so yeah, they're practically next door then.
Neighbours,
So-
yeah. Yeah, that kind of era of the band where they were slightly less technical and more like kind of groove laden. And I think this album has a lot of comparisons to that. You know, it's packed with those moments. I think it was track 4, I think, Sanctimonious, I'm pretty sure it was. When I heard that, I was like, this could be a B-side from Nihility. Like, it's got the same character, overthrown and opiated consumption. On the other hand, was giving me more of a kind of something out the kind of Cannibal Corpse playbook. It's got that kind of like hammer smash face type kind of blast beat with the kind of ride cymbal groove, and then you've got that kind of deep kind of guttural vocal as well. Which, you know, and vocally he has a kind of, it's quite a kind of George-esque kind of sound he's got. Like George Corpsegrinder's a hugely kind of percussive
Yes.
in this kind of style and delivery, the way he kind of attacks the kind of pulse of each riff. And the vocalist of Intrepid, Reiko, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, quite a similar technique. It reminded me a little bit of George in places. The other kind of component of this band that caught my eye live was the bass player, Sim Sudla. Firstly, very photogenic. He's a sexy son of a bitch. I must admit, got some
And
really,
almost every death metal band needs to have the one guy who you just know
yeah.
could be doing something else.
Um,
The rest of them have been kind of forced that way. You know, but there's always that one guy who's like, you know, if I wanted to moonlight in the Arctic Monkeys, I could tomorrow. I'd be a wee bit more tattooed than I want to be, but yeah, it'd be fine.
yeah. I was taking photos for the first few songs, so I got up close to the guy, a few photos.
How close?
But yeah.
You take photos of your perfect.
But I was also fascinated by his playing. He's a very, very good bass player. And obviously, like if you listen to the riffs on this album, you know, there's a lot like with death metal and technical death metal. There's a lot of moving parts. They don't, you know, the riffs don't sit in one spot for too long. But he matches a lot of what the guitars are doing. He's not just sitting within like the root note of each riff. He's kind of nailing all these kind of twists and turns that the riffs take. So it was really cool to hear that on the album after seeing it live. And he does it in a very impressive fashion on this release. His bass tone is also fucking awesome on this. He's got a nice kind of rattle to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a constant reminder of the bass and, you know, what he's adding to these tracks like the whole way through. I think my first like full listen to this album, I found it kind of like a lot of fun. I think these guys have come on leaps and bounds since that debut album. This is like much more fluid. The playing is much tighter. The concepts are much more developed on this release. There's plenty of like switch ups and the tempo, and then there's a little bit of kind of atmosphere that they throw in as well, just kind of break things up and, you know, give you a little kind of moment of space here and there. And likewise, there's some big kind of slower kind of sections like on Aries where they let the album sink into something a bit more kind of brooding as well before like ramping up the intensity as the track goes on. It ticks all the boxes of like that kind of old school death metal sound, but it's got a nice kind of fresh, kind of punchy production, courtesy of the guys and Mark Lewis. On the flip side of that, does it do anything that I haven't heard done before? And the answer is not really. Like, as I said, you could like fucking red web this to a ton of different death metal bands. They have clear influences, and if you're looking for an album that like gives you that nostalgia and hits all the beats of like that late 90s, early 2000s death metal, then this is, this will be worth your time. You'll enjoy it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a band that knows exactly how they want to sound, and are like paying homage to the greats of death metal. There's those bands are in every genre, and I listen to a lot of them on a daily basis. So like I found this a very enjoyable listen. However, if you're looking for the next kind of like breakthrough act in death metal, that's leading the genre forward and going into like unexplored territory, then like I'm not sure this will quite give you what you want. Also, my other small, it's not really a gripe, it's just something I didn't really find was necessary, but there's a mid-album kind of industrial kind of interlude, which is also the title track.
Yes.
Wasn't sold on it, to be honest.
It's the juxtaposition, Dave. That's what they bring to the table.
It seemed like a wasted opportunity to me. I just felt like they could have done something else with a bit more originality, like I get that it's like this kind of mid-album kind of breather point where it's like possibly the most the what do you call it, like the vinyl split as well, probably. But when I was listening back to the album, I kind of tended to skip it, if I'm honest. It was just like, okay, yeah, that's cool, but I didn't really feel like it added anything to the album, to be honest. Final thing on my last point is a positive one. Production's great. Like, it very much reminds me of that late 90s, early 2000s sound. It's got the weight and the clarity of an album released in 2025, but it has a bit of that old school rub to it as well, which suits this band down to the ground. I enjoyed myself with this one. Is it on the same level of the likes of like Nihility by Decapitated or those types of bands? No, but do I think they have the playing chops and the capability to do something that shows more of the Intrepid personality? Yes, I do. It was mostly positive. Like the negative stuff is basically just there's nothing really overly original here. I've heard of a lot of this stuff done before, but they do it well. What about yourself? What do you think of this?
Yeah, Juxtaposition's a frustration for me, not the album, the track.
All right.
In that it showed me like a different side of something that they could do, which is never really featured anywhere else in the album.
No.
So even hearing that PR release, they're saying, it perfectly matches what they do in terms of fusing, however they worded it, moments of death metal with moments of other. I don't know if they actually do that. I think they're very good at kind of melding different eras of death metal.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think they really move away from that genre at all, where Juxtaposition showed me a little bit something different, a little bit something curious. That could have easily been, those elements could have easily been transposed into other songs on this album to give more distinction. I listened to this 3 times. I wasn't sold right at the end of the first listen, if I'm honest. I thought, like you mentioned, I love the production on this. I think the guitar has this really crunchy, kind of chunky sound to it. The bass is crystal fucking clear, which is always something that will make me very happy. And I love the drum production is like late 90s, early 2000s to a fault. And that's kind of what I want in my death metal. It's where I kind of opine these days. I struggle with things that are too one way now, you know what I mean? I kind of like stuff that kind of heralds back to a more simpler time, not an easier time when death metal didn't have like 9-string guitars. And I think they've got like really good chops. I love the riffing on this one. I think they like clearly good songwriters. They rattle around this, like switching up between like brutal breakdowns and rapid blast beats. Vocals has a fucking great tone, and like just what I would class as a good old fashioned traditional death metal style of vocals.
Yeah.
He's not trying to do pig squeals. He's not trying to do like loads of gimmicky things. There's no one fucking doing hand machine guns while he's singing. You know, it's just like he's good old-fashioned traditional death metal vocalist, and it works for their sound. The album isn't overly long either. You know what I mean? It clocks in about just over the 40-minute mark. So it gives you enough of the character of the band. I think where it falls over, and you've kind of touched on it for me, when I'm listening to this, I hear nothing new being brought to the table, which is fine for the most part. But I also think, now that you've given me more information about the band, proximity might be a little bit to do with that. Like, if you're from a music scene, look at Denmark, for example, where you're just surrounded by bands that are constantly pushing the envelope of what happens, you kind of by osmosis take on those qualities and push things. I don't know what the death metal scene is like in Estonia.
Yeah.
We know what their influences are because you can hear it all the way through here. So you're influenced by things of a time, of an era somewhere else. So you, as a band, represent that, and maybe you don't try and reinvent the wheel over things that you really like. It's also only album too. And if you're saying the first one is really rough, this is technically their first proper album then.
Yeah. They're really young as well. Like, remember when I saw them live, I thought, God, these guys are like very young.
Yeah. So what I think that there's a lot of promise here. I think there's a little bit of an identity crisis, but I don't think it's anything that I think is bad. There's not a bad song here. Let's put it this way. If you're a death metal fan, if you call yourself a death metal fan, you will like this record. I don't know if you'll love the record, but you will like this record. Curious about the live performance, because you obviously raved about it then, still raving about it now. So I'm curious to see it. And sometimes you get that. Sometimes bands have, like, you know, very solid, very good albums, and then you see them live and you're like, this is what they were made to do. They were made to play these songs live, because live it transcends any recording which can't capture it. It's not a bad album. It's a good album. It's a good death metal album. It's like this year I've already been spoiled with one of my favourite death metal albums I've heard in a while. And it's almost unfair to compare anything to it, so I'm going to try not to. But as kind of traditional old school death metal albums go, this is great.
So scores for the new Intrepid album. Yeah, as I said, they wear their influences on their sleeve, but they're very good at it. They're young guys. They're really good musicians. Their songwriting skills has come on leaps and bounds since the debut. Production on this is really good. It's enjoyable. Like you'll hear a lot of other bands in this. You know, it'll take you back to that kind of like 90s, early 2000s era. So it won't necessarily give you anything new, but still a very fun listen. I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5, but I do believe with a bit more tweaking and a bit more kind of personality added to their sound, they could do something even bigger than this. What about yourself? What are you thinking?
Just a little bit lower than you. I'm coming in at 3 on this one.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really good. Like I say, if you're a death metal fan, I challenge you not to enjoy this album.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Intrepid Juxtaposition out on June 4th via Knife Fight Media. Check out the links to the band. I put a link to the pre-order, one of the singles, so you can check it out. Let us know what you think. Have a listen. That's the review. Thanks for checking out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.